DND number 10, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 2, Chapter 10. Excuse me. Goodness. September 14th. It's late Saturday afternoon. Los Angeles Coliseum, Los Angeles, California. Jordan looked up as they approached their seats, about 8 rows up from the 50-yard line. The whole family was there, all sporting the Trojan colors. On the 6th row up, Jordan was greeted by Cam and Jeffy, and Kim and Jensen. Kim, who Jordan remembered was the daughter of Jason and Angel Lee, was also pregnant, but still stood and hugged Jordan and exclaimed how nice it was to see her again. The 7th row was occupied by Jeff Davis, his sons Daniel and Jeremy, and Grandmaster Keno and Shelley, Angel and Jason Lee and Justin Lee. Jordan again was hugged, and when she asked where the little ones were, she was told that they stayed at the house with Jeff's wife, Mickey, who was also pregnant and not feeling up to the big game. She and Justin's wife, Lori, were taking care of not only the 4 little Kenos, but also little Emily, Mark's and Bella's little girl, and Sophia, Kelson, and Ledger, Joey's and Breeze's babies. On the 8th row, young Eric and Jordan had to scooch to their seats past Joey, Mark, Breeze, Bella, and Logan, who all stood and hugged her and greeted young Eric. On the other side of Jordan was Taylor, Bree, and Ricky. And after being hugged by Three's family, Jordan and young Eric finally settled into their seats. Jordan looked around wide-eyed. "Three, this place is gigantic," she exclaimed. "I know, right? I love coming here." "I guess you come here a lot." "Well, ever since JoJo was a freshman." "Did he redshirt?" "No, he started as a true freshman, and now he's a junior and a Heisman candidate, and I'm so freaking proud of him." He's not a junior, he's a senior. "And I'm so freaking proud of him." He shook his head. "A few weeks ago, he almost stopped playing when Granddad got shot. He didn't feel like he could go on, but we talked him into it. We told him that Granddad wouldn't be happy about him quitting. College Game Day is doing a little piece today about him and almost quitting and about what happened with Granddad and how and why he was shot. I'm not sure if they'll talk at all about the miracle that occurred, but I hope they do." "Why?" "Planting seeds. People need to wake up and realize that God is real and stop denying the signs and wonders he gives us on almost a daily basis." Jordan thought about that for a moment. "Tell me about a sign and wonder." Young Eric smiled at her, glad that she asked. "Well, meeting you, for one. I don't always stop to help everyone I see. I may not have stopped to help you if you hadn't tried to jump on that wrench to try to get the lug nut loose. I turned my head and my eyes at just the right time to see you fall. If I'd been running on time, I would have already passed that stretch of road before your tire went flat. But I was running late, and I saw you. Still, I intended to keep on going because I was late. But I've learned to listen to God's voice, and he yelled at me to stop and help you. And then I know of a certainty that I was meant to meet you when you told me that what you're studying in school." Jordan made a face. Eric chuckled. "Most people just ignore things like that or chalk them up to weird coincidences. But there's no such thing as a coincidence. God's universe is not random. It is not chaos. It is ordered. There is a plan. So if Game Day covers the miracle part of the story, even partially, it's a good thing because it helps people to wake up. It plants seeds. It gets them thinking and talking about the possibilities. Just like we are right now." He grinned. "Exactly." Just then they looked up as Megan Morrell, the pretty sideline reporter, made her way up, a cameraman by her side. "Hello. Okay, so we're going to go live in a few minutes. Where are JoJo's parents?" Mark and Bella stood. "Great." She shook their hands. "So nice to meet you and to see the whole family here." She pointed at Ricky and Bree and spoke to the cameraman. "Make sure you get a shot of them." The man nodded. She smiled at Grandmaster Keno. "Sir, if you'd rather not stand, we can interview you from your seat." He smiled warmly. "I can stand, but thank you for your kind consideration." Young Eric leaned over and whispered to Jordan, "I think that means they're going to say something about the miracle." Jordan smiled. "Sounds like it." "Okay," Megan went on, "we're going to pan the camera as I call your name, so let me practice and make sure I get it right." She moved down 2 steps. "Dr. Juneflower Keno and her husband." She moved up one step. Grandmaster Keno and his wife, Shelley, a former Mark champion. She moved up one more step. Keno Challenge champion Joey Adams and his wife. Former Keno Challenge champion and film star Ricky Keno and his wife. And three-time Oscar winner Brianna Adams. Let's see. Social media icon, half of the Gabe and Taylor phenomena, Taylor Keno. She frowned and pointed at young Eric. And you're the one about to fight in the Keno Challenge this year, right? He smiled at her and nodded. He hadn't realized he'd be mentioned. Okay, so Eric Keno III, about to fight for the first time in the Keno Challenge. And your wife? Jordan's eyes opened wide. Nope. Eric laughed. She's a good friend. Megan nodded. Got it. And you're JoJo's brother, Logan, correct? She asked, pointing at Logan. Yes, ma'am, he answered brightly. Okay, we're going to go in that order and save the parents for last. We'll interview Grandmaster Keno and the parents only. She put her hand to her earpiece. They're running the piece now. It'll be our turn in just a few minutes. Logan, you stand right behind your parents. And Mr. and Mrs. Adams, come stand here on the steps, please. And Grandmaster Keno, are you able to come stand next to them? Eric smiled and rose to do her bidding. Only a minute later, they went live. Hello, Reese. We are so excited to have all of JoJo's family right here, ready to cheer him on today. Just look who we have. Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Juneflower Keno and her husband, Grandmaster Keno, who we're going to come back and talk to in just a second, his lovely wife, Shelley Keno, a former Mark champion, current Keno Challenge champion, the hunky Joey Adams and his wife, former and original Keno Challenge champion and film star, the studly Ricky Keno, and his beautiful and talented wife, three-time Oscar winner Brianna Adams. Next, we have the social media icon, half of the Gabe and Taylor phenomena, Taylor Keno. And here we have the next Keno Challenge competitor, Eric Keno III and his girlfriend. And this is Logan, JoJo's not-so-little brother, and JoJo's proud parents, Mark and Bella Adams. Mark, you're a former Heisman candidate. I know you must be proud of your son. He nodded. We are extremely proud of him and all the hard work he puts in. What does it mean to him to get a win here today? The rest of the family had to try very hard to not roll their eyes at the stupid question. Mark chuckled. It means his team is one step closer to their goal of making it to the CFP, the playoffs. That is his main concern, his team. Megan nodded in agreement. Absolutely. Mrs. Adams, we heard that JoJo almost stopped playing when his grandfather was in the hospital fighting for his life. What made him change his mind? Bella smiled sweetly. It was two things. His brothers convinced him that his grandfather would want him to keep playing, keep fighting the good fight, and he didn't want to let his team down. Well, that is a beautiful thing. Megan turned to smile at Grandmaster Keno. Sir, I know you must be proud of your grandson, and I know he's extremely grateful to have you standing here at this game. What can you tell us about your recent experience? I can tell you that there are no coincidences, and God has a plan. It wasn't my time to go. Yet in my hour of need, millions of people came together in love and kindness and prayer and fellowship for a common goal. That's a little bit of what's happening here today. Both teams and their supporters are coming together today to try to make something good happen. As long as it's done in honor and love, it's a marvelous thing. Megan turned to the camera. Reese, those are some great words to live by. They are indeed. Wonderful to see the Adams and Keno families. Thank you, Megan. Megan nodded and the camera light went off. Hey, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of your family. She shook hands with Mark, Bella, and Logan and left. They all looked up as the teams came onto the field to warm up. Everyone stood and cheered, including Jordan, who put her fingers to her mouth and whistled. And Eric grinned at her. Perfect. New scene. What do you think so far, young Eric asked Jordan as they sat across from the ladies' restroom at halftime on a concrete divider between the next level. Jordan beamed. I think it's awesome. I mean, now this is the way to watch a game. So much fun. Yeah, as long as you have good seats. If you get seats away up in the nosebleeds, it's better to watch it on TV. Have you ever sat up in the nosebleeds? Not at a home game, but when we travel to away games, you get what you can get. So tell me, what's your favorite part so far? Well, my favorite part of the game was when JoJo scrambled away on the blitz, threw across his body all the way across the field, and that wide receiver actually came down with it to tie the game. Eric smiled and nodded her on. And my favorite part of everything else is split between sitting next to your sister and us answering her questions about the game and hearing the roar of the crowd. It's deafening, and you just don't get that on TV. He smiled at her. No, you don't. They looked up as Taylor and Logan approached. We're going to go get some goodies. You or your girlfriend want anything? Taylor asked with a giggle, making reference to the reporter calling Jordan his girlfriend. Young Eric frowned. Ha ha, Jordan, want anything? Yeah, I'll take one of those footlongs and some fries. Eric nodded. Make it two, and thanks. Logan smiled. You got it, bro. They watched them walk off, then Eric turned back to Jordan. Sorry about that, Jordan. About what? About the reporter calling you my girlfriend in front of the world. She shrugged. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't? No, of course not. I could be called much worse things. He chuckled. I guess that's true. So, well, if it doesn't bother you, what would you think about making it official? Her eyes opened wide. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. He reached out and took her hand. Shall we make it real? You and me, exclusively? Her mouth opened. I don't want you to be forced to ask me to be your girlfriend because of some reporter's blunder. Well, that's not why I'm asking. She just gave me the opening to broach the subject, and surely you know me well enough to know that no one can force me to do anything I don't want to do. She nodded. Yeah, I get that about you. So what do you say, Miss Jordan Brooks? I really like you. I think you like me. Let's see where this goes. She smiled sweetly and nodded. Okay, let's see where this goes. You and me. You and me, he said softly, as he reached out and touched her cheek reverently with the back of his knuckles. She took his hand and kissed it softly. The moment was intruded upon when someone screamed. New scene. Ricky started to the restroom at halftime, but had been stopped numerous times by autograph seekers and selfie takers. He finally made his way down the ramp and noticed his son and Jordan sitting on a concrete barrier. They seemed rather cozy, Ricky thought, as he stopped to watch them for a minute. Young Eric reached out and stroked his knuckles down her cheek, and she took that same hand, brought it to her lips, and kissed it. Ricky smiled. He could see this girl becoming a big part of their lives. A scream ripped through the air. Let go! A woman screamed. Ricky looked over the crowd, trying to see what was taking place. Stop him! He took my purse! The woman yelled. Even faster than he could react, Ricky looked over to see his son jump up and trip the guy as he tried to run past him. Young Eric went to him, and a couple of seconds later, the guy lay unconscious. Jordan joined Eric and scooped up the purse that had been tossed aside before anyone else could grab it. Security arrived and took over and thanked young Eric. The woman retrieved her purse from Jordan and thanked her profusely, and Ricky glanced around at all the cell phones out and recording and sighed. His son usually tried to keep a low profile. It wasn't going to be possible this time. Rick hurried to the restroom before he himself was accosted again. He was used to being famous, to people asking for his autograph. It had been happening since he was a kid, starring in his first ninja movie. But the world was changing exponentially, and it was getting more and more difficult to maintain any modicum of privacy. Coming out of the restroom, he spotted Jason on his cell phone as he watched over his wife, Angel, at the concession stand. Jason spotted him and waved him forward. What you got? Ricky asked as he approached. Jason held up his hand, spoke another command into the phone, ended the call, and looked to make sure Angel was okay. We've located the child in that video. He lives in Modesto. Preliminary info is he lives with an aunt. Her name is Sandra Norton. She's single and partially disabled. Don't know what that means yet. Don't know how she's disabled. The child's parents are divorced. The father left. The mother turned to drugs and gave the child to the aunt. Don't know her whereabouts yet. The child is 2 years old, born May 11th. Same time frame as the others. Correct. We're going after trash DNA instead of waiting for a court order on Monday. If we're able to get something, we'll send it to one of Jeffy's labs, and by Monday, we should know a preliminary profile. Instincts? I'm only hopeful. Jeffy wasn't able to sense this child, so I'm skeptical. Well, maybe we should bring her into our confidence and see what she feels now. We may have to, since I want her to put a rush on the labs, Jason sighed. I'll send her the video. Ricky headed back to the seats. Young Eric and Jordan were already sitting in their seats, chowing down on junk food. Taylor, too. He only shook his head. He patted his son on the shoulder. Good job on tripping that guy. Great reaction time. Young Eric grinned. Taught by the best. Yes, you were, if you're talking about your grandfather. No, Dad, I was talking about you. You trained me. Ricky sighed. Okay, I accept the compliment. He looked out at the field to see JoJo warming up. You think we can pull this off? Yes, I do, young Eric stated firmly. We're only down by 3 and we got the ball. We're a second half kind of team. So here we go. That's right, Eric, Mark said. We got this. Just no turnovers. The rest of the family barely made it to their seats for the kickoff. It was a fantastic possession. The O-line was making holes. The running backs were eating up 6 to 7 yards per carry. Then someone jumped and they got backed up. They found themselves in a 3rd and 15, and the blitz was coming, but JoJo sprinted out. At first, he thought he'd try to run for the first himself, but at the last moment, he saw his tight end turn and get clear, and JoJo fired it. Touchdown. The crowd went crazy, and so did JoJo's family. Mark smiled with pride. Young Eric and Logan were screaming and high-fiving each other, and Jordan's whistle was so loud it hurt everyone's ears. Jeff and his boys were jumping up and down. Everyone was jumping up and down. Jeffy had to sit down quickly and hold her belly as the little boy inside started to kick. Extra point good. The score was now 42-38. All right, defense, come on now. Get your freaking act together. Young Eric smiled as everyone turned to grin at his girlfriend for her assessment. She smiled with a shrug. Well, 3, she said softly. It's the truth. He chuckled. Yep, some decent defense would be great right about now. The defense must have heard her because they offered up a 3 and out. Or it might have been a halftime adjustment, but young Eric was willing to chalk it up to Jordan's sideline coaching. The Trojans' next possession took up most of the 3rd quarter and ended in another score. They went into the 4th quarter, 49-38. Run, clock, run, Jordan murmured. Taylor turned to her. Why? Jordan took time to explain that the other team was down by 2 scores, and if we could maintain our lead, they wouldn't have time to come back. She explained about the timeouts remaining and how they would probably be used. Taylor smiled at her. You rock, you know that? Jordan laughed. And why do you say that? Taylor shrugged. You're so smart about football. You're easygoing. You're not snobby. You rock. Well, thanks, Taylor. You're pretty cool yourself. And by the way, I love what you said on that interview this morning. That guy didn't deserve you being so nice to him. Taylor shrugged. Yeah, it's okay. And I learned a good lesson about guys wanting to get you alone. Jordan nodded. Yeah, guys can be creeps, she said, thinking of her stepfather. But not all guys, Taylor said, looking over at her brother. Jordan smiled. Yeah, not all guys. The defense was struggling again. They had Utah twice in the 3rd and long situation, but Utah converted both times, and that was the bad news. The good news was they were eating up the clock. They moved it down the field, but at least the Trojan defense held the Utes to a field goal. Score now 49-41. Trojans got the ball on the 25-yard line. JoJo threw a couple of 10-yard passes. They were 1st and 10 at the 50-yard line. The next play, however, ended with the Trojans center down. There was a long timeout. His knee was badly injured, and they had to come and get him off the field in an injury cart. First play with the new center, the snap went high, and JoJo had to leap high into the air to grab it, which he did. He sprinted left, looking for receivers, and found everyone covered, so he took off and slid down a yard short of the first down. Second play, he sneaked it. He made the first down, but on the bottom of the pile, someone got in a few knees and elbows, and JoJo was slow to get up. The family was on their feet, but quiet. JoJo limped back to the huddle. Okay, guys, let's get this done. He called the play. They lined up. He looked to the sideline. He clapped his hands once, twice. The center snapped the ball, and it went flying over JoJo's head. He leaped for it, but it was too high. He took off after it, was able to scoop it up. He was being blitzed. He couldn't see downfield to pass. He tucked and ran. He dodged a few incoming, but they were everywhere. He got chopped in half and brought down by three big guys, and then a fourth piled on. Yellow flags flew from everywhere. Trojan linemen went to pull JoJo out from under the pile, pulling Utes off the pile, which started a shoving match, which started an all-out brawl. Coaches were trying to keep the sideline players off the field. Refs were trying to stop the fighting, and finally, when it all cleared, all anyone could see was JoJo was still laying on the field, flat on his face, not moving. Help was at his side in seconds. The family, all on their feet, stood silently. They watched the Jumbotron replay to see if they could tell how badly he might be hurt. It showed the replay 3 different times, different angles, and then suddenly their own images were on the big screen as TV cameras zeroed in on JoJo's family and the worry on their faces. Mark watched the field silently and then breathed a sigh of relief as JoJo sat up. The crowd applauded. A minute later, JoJo was helped to his feet. The trainers and docs walked beside him as he slowly exited the field, 2 thundering cheers and applause. Mark watched him on the sideline, nodding to whatever question the coach was asking him. Back on the field, it was 1st and 10 because of the penalties. The backup QB handed the ball off a few times, but they got nothing. It was 3rd and long, and the Trojans needed one more first down to keep the Utes from getting the ball again. JoJo put on his helmet and went back in. In the huddle, he put a hand on the center's shoulder. Settle down, Wade. No nerves. Just do what you know you can do. Concentrate. You got this. The guy nodded. Sorry, Joe. No worries. We're good. They're going to come after me again. You guys ready? They broke and went to the line. The center snapped the ball right into JoJo's hands. He stepped back and fired a shot into the tight end's numbers. First down. The crowd went bonkers while Jordan explained to Taylor why the team could simply take a knee on every down for the last minute of the game. When time ran out, Taylor, Jordan, young Eric, and Logan all threw their arms around each other and jumped in a circle, then turned toward the field and yelled for JoJo and watched the crowd run onto the field. Good times. New scene. It's the next day, September 15th, Sunday morning, at the Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Rose closed her eyes as she listened to the beautiful music floating through the house. It had been quite a while since Violet had played the piano. Really, almost never since the fiasco at Juilliard. After that, Rose had come home from the University of West Florida, where she'd been studying marine biology, and Vi had come home from New York, and they'd both started classes at the local Gordon College. Everyone thought that Rose was being loving and protecting of her sister and set aside her dream of working with dolphins. But she knew it wasn't true. Oh, she was worried about Vi, but the marine biologist thing had been a passing fancy and a form of rebellion. Smiling, she made her way downstairs to the front living room where, before today, the piano had been sitting gathering dust. She stood in the doorway and listened as Violet played an absolute beautiful rendition of How Great Thou Art. It was so well done, it brought tears to Rose's eyes. She waited for her to finish and then moved forward and put her arms around her sister's neck and kissed her cheek. Lord, Vi, that was really beautiful. Violet patted Rose's arm. Thanks, hon. It feels good to play again. Well, what has inspired you, if you don't mind me asking? I don't mind. I guess it was Logan asking me to play for Taylor and Miss Bree's birthday. I almost automatically turned them down, but I didn't want to go into a big explanation of why I don't play anymore, of what happened up in New York. So I agreed to play, and I realized how much I miss it. And I realized that Dad was right. I'd been allowing Professor Kine to continue to hurt me, and it was time to get my life back. Rose's eyebrows rose. Are you going back to New York? Oh, no, never. I truly hate New York. How anyone can live in a city so full of darkness and hatred is beyond me. It's Babylon, or a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah. No thanks. Well, in fairness, sis, New York is not the only place like that, and there are also a lot of good people there, too. Violet smiled. Agreed. So, do you have some plans? Rose probed. Career-wise? I might get my teaching certificate and teach music locally. I don't want to leave Pine Forest, if that's the real question. Rose smiled. It was, and good. So, how do you feel about helping out teaching music at the community center? If it ever gets opened, I could help. Why do you ask? Are you going to help out? Rose grinned and shook her head. I'm going to run it. We're going to have a grand opening soon. How soon? Maybe next month if it all comes together like I want. Even after the big opening, there will be a lot left to do, but I want to get it up and running ASAP. You're kidding. Why haven't you said anything? Well, I wanted to make sure it's what I really want to do. And like you, I've decided I don't want to leave Pine Forest. Violet stood and turned and hugged her sister. Oh, this just makes me so happy. We'll be here together, and we can work together, and we can be here for Mom when she has the babies. They hugged again, but turned when their mother and little Iris came in, all dressed up for church. Iris wants to know why you stopped the pretty music, and will you play Jesus Loves Me? For you, my sweet girl, I'll play anything, Violet said. You better not tell her that, or we'll be hearing wheels on the bus until we're brain dead, Lizzie laughed. Smiling, Violet sat back down and played Jesus Loves Me for her baby sister. Then she had to go finish getting ready for church, and then after church there would be a big farewell luncheon for Jake over at the inn. And then finally, sometime this evening, after he got off his shift, CJ was going to stop by. She sighed. Life was good. New scene, same day, September 15th, Sunday afternoon, Pine Forest Country Inn, Pine Forest, Georgia. Jake looked around at the people he loved most in this world, his mother and father, his in-laws and neighbors, the Stewarts and the Tanners, Kurt and Landon, his best friends from high school, and Bugs, his wife. His wife. What a whirlwind this homecoming had been. The day he arrived, and he had an altercation with the guy who would, only 1 week later, beat and rape Lena, a girl he'd known all his life and had no idea he would fall head over heels for. Jake could fly to Cali to watch his little bro Gabe. Jake would then fly to Cali to watch his little bro Gabe become an instant martial arts phenomena. Gabe would then be abducted from the side of the road, and eventually Jake would help to rescue him. Jake and Lena realized their love and got engaged out of the blue. A month later, they were married. Then they lost Miss Maddie, who went home to be in heaven with her husband. And finally, Jake and Lena would fly back to Cali, thinking to see Gabe as he passed from this world after being shot and stabbed and developed a blood infection. And then the miracle. Gabe and Grandmaster Keno both have an NDE or maybe a DE, and God heals them. Now Jake is getting ready to leave for Kabul, apparently to handle some covert ops and getting certain VIPs out of Afghanistan. He was not afraid, though he had been for a minute, but after prayer and meditation he received peace and a knowing that he was going to make it back home with no problem. He'd actually always known he would be a Marine Raider, and he'd always known it was his calling, and he'd always known he would make it back home. He tried to convey that feeling to these people who were here to bid him farewell, because some of them, not all, but some, were acting like this was a final farewell. The main person he tried to convince was currently cuddled up next to him on one of the love seats in the lobby of the inn. His Lena Bug. They'd now been married 3.5 months. He hated to have her leave, but they both knew he would from the beginning. She was not clinging, she was being brave, and that's one of the reasons he'd fallen in love with her. They were young. He was 21. She would turn 21 in November. Some people thought that they were way too young to marry, but he knew it was the right thing to do. He looked down at her as she turned her head up toward him and smiled. He placed a soft kiss on her lips. All these people love you so much, Lena said softly. He nodded. I love them too. She sighed. Tell me again how everything is going to be okay. He tilted her face up so he could look directly into her eyes. Everything really is going to be okay, Bugs. I know. And you have so much to do to keep you occupied that you won't even have time to think about me. You have the land to buy, the house to plans to search out, the stable to build, the horses to procure and to take care of, and Rose to help. I'm not sure how you're going to do it all. She grinned. Just watch me. Well, what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, first, I have to coordinate with Rose. Then I'll plan a calendar and start doing research and making appointments. My dad is going to be a huge help. I'm not going to rush. I'm going to take things slow and steady and let the business build slowly. He squeezed her hand. I am so proud of you. I am the luckiest man in the world. She giggled. Yes, you are. He laughed. Jake, once you leave in the morning, will I be able to call you at all? Yeah, at first, 'cause I got to train in Lejeune for 2 weeks and then at Pendleton for a few weeks. And after that, though, communications will be spotty. But there will be communications. I just don't know how often. Okay, you lovebirds, Rose interrupted. Lunch is ready. All of Jake's favorite food, so come and get it. I'm starved, Lena said. It's a good thing Jake has such good taste. John Apple smiled at his son and daughter-in-law. He does indeed. And that is the end of chapter 10.